The Yngwie record came out. I just couldn't even understand it. I was like, what? How does he do that? What is this? And I remember went to Paul Gilbert's apartment for like a private lesson. And I'm like, dude, what is he doing? Like, what's going on here? First of all, thanks for having me. And I love your site and I mean, I love shredding. I grew up, I didn't do a lot of it, of course, in Velvetrevolver because I was in a band with Slash. So there's not a lot of room. But, he was my favorite guitar player in high school and, still one of my favorites. And when I started playing, I got to a point where I could move my fingers, but I didn't really know where to put them, and I ended up going to music school, going to MI in Hollywood. And dude, I when I was going there, Paul Gilbert was a student. Like I was in first quarter and Paul was in third quarter, and Steve Vai would come and play and do like clinics, and there was just so much shredding going. No, but there was so much of that, and for me, it's like I was super into that. I would sit in a room and just practice scale patterns all day. And yeah, I remember the first Yngwie record came out, and I remember I had the album, and I go to Paul Gilbert because he was the only dude so Racer X used to practice in this practice room at like 8 a.m, right? And I would go to school early just to watch. It was him and John, the bass player, and it was before Bruce was in the band, but Bruce was also a student there. So it was just a three-piece. It was John Already, Paul Gilbert, and this Italian dude that played drums. I think he might have played on the first Racer X record. And they would practice, dude, and I would just sit in the room and watch, because it was a performance room. And, so I've always been super into it. And the Yngwie record came out, and I just couldn't even understand it. I was like, what? How does he do that? What is this? And I remember I went to Paul Gilbert's apartment for like a private lesson. And I'm like, dude, how does he, what is he doing? Like, what's going on here? And I remember Paul like put the record on and he listened to it once, like this one little shred part, and then he was like, oh, wait. And he listened to it again and he's like, oh, it's just Phrygian mode. It's A minor scale over E minor. I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, it's just this. I'm like, oh my God, dude. I was so just blown away.
I've heard stories that Paul Gilbert has also taught Buckethead at his apartment before. Did you ever run into Buckethead while being out there, seeing him as like a student?
If I did, I wouldn't have known it because he didn't have the bucket on. But,
Right.
It's like I don't really know him very well. I wouldn't even know what he looked like without the bucket. The only people I remember from the school was I know other guys that went there actually, like my buddy Scott that was in Weezer, that plays bass in Weezer. He went there. Rivers went there.
Which you also play with those guys too, on Spike TV.
Yeah, I did.
Right.
But I didn't go when they went. I just know that they went. So I know Jeff Buckley went there. There's a bunch of people that went there. When I was going there, the only one, that I remember really was all the Racer X guys. John, all those guys I already mentioned. Even Bruce was going there. And then there was like Steve Vai and guys like that would come and do clinics and stuff.
Okay, well, I gotta ask you this, and what would you say is the most valuable thing you learned while you went to the Musicians Institute? The thing you walked away with, you said, wow, that helped me tremendously throughout my career.
Probably the scale patterns, and basic theory. Really just that, knowing where to go, the basics, the foundation of theory and, you know, like I'm definitely not the most, you know, if you said play an, you know, A7 9 chord or what, A minor 9, you know, I could figure it out, you know, but I wouldn't just go like, oh yeah, it's this. I'll play this, and this is the inversion of that. And, you know, like I know what all that stuff is, and it's like reading music, you know, you don't, unless you are constantly do it, you kind of forget about it. So, but really those scale patterns and knowing like the basics of, you know, oh, I can play anywhere on the fretboard in A minor. I can, in A minor, you know, or the relative major to, you know, G major, relative minor is E minor. So I know like that, or, you know, just those very basic things definitely carried on for that, you know, I still use today.